Hi everybody, my name's Ben Putley. I'm CEO and co-founder of Alkimi. Before I get started, I just wanted to thank Colin and the team at Blockstart. It's a brilliant event. It's great to see you all here. And yeah, hopefully you find this enjoyable. It was really great to see, actually, just on the last panel, here, pardon me, that paid ads were getting a bit of a mention. I think in Web3, there's kind of two speeds of marketing. One really is like your sponsorships and endorsements, and then you have kind of KOL and performance-based marketing. But in the Web2 world, there's a ton of money, a ton of time that is spent on paid media, kind of helping brands move their customers everywhere else throughout the funnel. So we'll talk about that today, but before we do, I wanted to kind of give you a little bit more of a background on Alkimi, our team, what we do. So very simply, we're a marketplace that's built on a blockchain that helps advertisers, brands, and media owners buy or sell ads in real time. The team is now around 60 people. We are head officed in London, with a very large development team out in Bangalore, and we really are helping bring ads on chain. As we kind of said at the top of the presentation, that is a $600 billion market, kind of an intangible real-world asset, if you will, that we're able to kind of capture the yield for every single ad that's transacted on our chain and then distribute that to our holders. I wanted to give you a picture of how we've been doing. This is our results. It's a lot of numbers, but I want you to kind of have a look at the brands that we're working with. These are proper, serious Web2 brands that are now seeing the value in using a blockchain, not just for another crypto-to-crypto swap, but actually to solve a challenge that they are, and I will, take you through over the next sort of 18 minutes and 6 seconds. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, I'm going to give you all a brief history lesson, so bear with me on that one. And then, because I'm imagining that a lot of you probably won't have experienced or understand anything around kind of the complexities and the intricacies of digital ad marketing, kind of talk you through that briefly. And then how we're going to enter a new era of Web3 ad tech. So buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride. I hope you all enjoy it, but here we go. So cast your mind back. Imagine it's 1994. We haven't yet realized that Forrest Gump thinks that life is like a box of chocolates. Simba is just about to be presented to Pride Rock and the rest of the animal kingdom. And we also didn't have to worry about charges. We played Snake. We topped our phones up with phone credits, and we sent text messages on devices that looked like this. 8 megabytes was all we needed to have all the fun that we ever wanted to. We plugged our controllers into consoles. And this is what the internet looked like. So this is the very first internet browser, and this really was the beginning of Web 2. We moved from read-only to read and write, to start to interact with websites and information in a way that we hadn't done up until this point. And what came with the first browser was cookies. You probably all, maybe you've seen a cookie today. Every time you go on a website now, you're asked whether you want to accept them or decline them. But really, they were invented to allow the internet to remember what you'd put in your basket when you came to purchase something. Since that point, in 1994, it's been used for a whole host of other things, but namely, the infrastructure that supports digital advertising online. So that infrastructure is 30 years old. The biggest brands that you can think of, every single FTSE 200, 250 brand, the brands that you're drinking back there, the food that you're eating, are all using technology that was invented 30 years ago. And if you're thinking that is crazy, you'd be right. But what it does do is support a $600 billion global ad market. That's $600 billion today. By 2029, that will be over $1 trillion. So we're not talking insignificant amounts of money here. This is proper money being spent every single day that you're all being exposed to, that's being supported by old, shitty infrastructure. But it serves a very, very important job, and I'm spending a little bit of time talking about this because the best version of the internet is one that's free and accessible to everyone. Paywalls are annoying. Walled gardens can dictate what type of content you're reading, from whom, by whom, and when. So really, ads play a very important role in keeping the internet free, accessible to everyone around the world. And that is at risk with the way in which the infrastructure is currently being run. I want to talk through that because, as I said, you may or may not understand kind of the complexities involved, but really what happens, and I'll talk about web pages because we all go on those all the time, right? When you load your web page, what you're actually starting is an auction between 5 to 20 buyers over the various ad units that exist on that particular website, on an app, really any kind of digital venue where you're going to consume content. And what happens is the page is loaded, that media owner asks advertisers for a bid. The advertiser submits a bid, and then a marketplace matches those and presents the best ad to the right person at the right time. It doesn't work very well. So between what should be a very simple transaction, you have a number of intermediaries, and don't worry if you don't understand what these are, but just kind of view these as people that are involved in helping people buy and sell ads. But each of these hops between you visiting the internet and then you seeing an ad takes a huge fee. 5% of those financial transactions online are transparent. So 95% of the time, an advertiser has no idea where their money's being spent. A website has no idea really what fees are being taken for the ads that are being sold on their website. And that fee is huge. It's 43% of every dollar that is spent online is kind of lost to intermediaries and middlemen. So really an inefficient, illiquid market is currently taking place on the best part of $600 billion this year. And lastly, it's important, although I did fly here, don't tell anyone, the digital ad industry produces more emissions than the global aviation industry, so I'm like a double offender because I work in both, unfortunately. And I think to really try and drive that home, I want you to, and anyone that knows me knows I love to thrash an analogy or a metaphor, so yeah, now you're all going to experience that as well. If you imagine the infrastructure online as a house, so the ad creatives are great, some aren't so great, but generally people spend a lot of time on creative, it looks shiny. If you imagine that as your living room, that's where you invite your guests in, that's where you host them, that's where they have the dinner. If you imagine the data behind the ads that are being targeted, when to target the right person on the right website at the right time is your kitchen, and then that underlying infrastructure is the basement. Perhaps there's a monster in there, or at least that's what your kids believe. You don't spend much time under there because there's massive spiders. And that's really where we're at with the way in which ads are traded today. And this is where, I imagine this will be more interesting for all of you, we start to talk about blockchain. Effectively, blockchains are programmable infrastructure that can be built for a specific purpose to provide more efficiencies, more liquidity and transparency, and disintermediate middlemen that are taking large fees without providing any real value that's passed on in that chain. And that's what we do at Alkimi. We have the slides broken. No. We provide a blockchain-based solution for people, brands, media agencies, media owners, to buy and sell ads more efficiently and more effectively. What I'll do now is kind of take you through that process. Now, this looks complicated, but I'm going to talk you through it, so please bear with me. On the left-hand side, you have people that are spending money, your demand side. On the far right-hand side, you have people that are trying to make money, the supply side, your media owners and your websites. The two boxes to the left of those are us onboarding that money onto the network itself. And then we have our network of validators. We have two speeds of validators, some of which are involved in hosting the actual ad auction. They are very high-performance validators. We have to complete an auction within 1 second as the page is loaded. And then we have a set of validators that notarize those transactions on chain, providing a completely transparent ledger for everything that took place within Alkimi's ad auctions. Then we have our labs platform. This is where you, as holders of the token, as validators of people that are providing liquidity, can see the performance of the network. You can query the actual ledger itself. You can determine how many rewards that you've earned. And if we look at it this way, it's kind of diving in a little bit further into actually the liquidity and what's happening here. We have, let's say, Nike come to us and they want to purchase ads on CNN. We charge them 6.5% on average as our network fee at the moment, and then pass on the remainder of those dollars to CNN for surfacing or providing the ability for an ad to be purchased online. The remainder of that fee is then used to purchase our tokens back and then distribute to people that are providing bandwidth, that are facilitating ad exchanges or ad auctions taking place, but fundamentally believe in a free and ad-funded internet and are willing to contribute resources to that purpose in exchange for earning a yield. And this is quite unfashionable in crypto, but we have sustainable fees, sustainable revenue that actually punches very much above our market cap. So at the moment, we're delivering just over $1,500 a day in fees to our validators. We anticipate that to expand quite significantly over the next 18 months or so. We have a number of global partners that we're now working with for them to buy media around the world. And we anticipate we'll be seeing somewhere in the region of $10 million in fees that are generated by our network for people that are helping to fund the internet over the course of the next 18 months. So if you want to think of that $600 billion again, and we've had a lot of talks today about DeepIn and RWA as kind of like a real-world asset. At Alkimi, that is how we view the digital ad market, as an intangible RWA. It's not a house, it's not an NFT, it's not a car necessarily, but it's an enormous pool of liquidity that in being able to validate that on chain, you allow anyone that's involved in that transaction to generate a yield from the trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of ad units that are served every single year by some of the biggest brands in the entire world. I'm now going to talk about just a little bit why that is important. This clicker's a bit temperamental. We're an internet company. Blockchain arguably is internet money. And what you're looking at this graph is the adoption of the internet over the last, take us to 2022. Coincidentally or not, depending on how you want to think about it, the number of people adopting wallets on chain is actually marrying up very, very closely to the original adoption of the internet. Makes sense to me, it's internet money. I think at the moment that puts us in January 2001. We kind of all knew what happened in the early noughties in terms of internet adoption. That was the big internet boom where everyone wanted to have some kind of internet-based product. Some great, Amazon, some not so great. I'm doing something online.com. But there is some headwinds here. I think that there's regulatory headwinds, there's kind of understanding of blockchain. I think at the moment, on the whole, people are generally approaching problems that can be solved by blockchain, technology first, and then kind of thinking about the people that will use their solution after the fact. I think the best products that have ever existed really kind of start with the consumer, start with the customer, and really work your way back to the technology and use the technology to solve a challenge and not vice versa, so we avoid kind of designing a new mousetrap, for want of a better term. You know, like the original one does quite a good job, and I think sometimes you can see that with faster, quicker, better, cleaner, swap sooner crypto projects that exist that don't necessarily solve a challenge, but are kind of a good exercise in demonstrating what is possible, but that really needs to be landed in a specific use case, solving a specific problem and a need for something to be on chain. But there are some tailwinds now. I think financial institutions have fought blockchain for a very long time, but are now kind of, as far as we're all concerned, seeing the light in terms of it as an asset class. And you're seeing now, and this won't be news to anyone in the room, but ETFs are launching. ETFs are great because people that don't necessarily want to be onboarded into blockchain can now have exposure to an asset in a way that can be accounted for by their accountant. It's very tax efficient, can be traded on platforms that they trust, and really, in general, just expanding the number of people that are now starting to question their broker or their financial institution what is a Bitcoin now, more recently Ethereum, and there will be future ETFs. I imagine that will be very much in vogue for a period of time where people are wanting to get safer, more secure exposure to certain assets, which ultimately for everything else is a good thing. You know, more eyeballs is better for everyone across the board. There is a video here, it's gone sadly, but it's not just financial institutions, it's now politicians. I think that Donald Trump, whilst he's dodging bullets, is also kind of fighting the good fight for us people that enjoy blockchain. I think he's understood the hardness of blockchain, of Bitcoin in particular, as an asset. What's he not? He's not what? Obviously, yeah, he's trying to win the re-election, yeah. He's talking about it, right? We're talking about it now. Yeah, so that's no bad thing, right? There's no, but bad publicity isn't necessarily bad publicity, right? What do you mean, courting it? I'm presidents, as in Kamala Harris is now talking about it. She may well be a future president. It's not. Donald Trump was the first to talk about it, yeah. Okay, do you want to make it back to politics? Cool, thanks for that. So yeah, it's becoming more and more mainstream was my point. And you'll forgive me for kind of posting this photo, but the UK is also going to be a leader in blockchain. There's a really great initiative that's being sponsored by Coinbase called Stand with Crypto. Stand with Crypto is really important because it's working with businesses that are looking at applications of blockchain outside of kind of the very narrow purview of financial applications. And there are many benefits to having an auditable on-chain record of what took place in any kind of marketplace. So here in the UK, here in Scotland, I think this is going to be a great hub. The UK has always been a services-based economy, and blockchain is great for deploying services. So yeah, the future is bright, I think, for blockchain. I think the future is probably going to be here in the UK. It's encouraging to see now the adoption kind of en masse across the board. And yeah, so just to recap, I gave you a brief history lesson. We talked about what happens with programmatic advertising, and then we talked about the future of Web3 ad tech. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for participating. My name's Ben Putley. I'm the CEO of Alkimi. It's been a pleasure speaking to you all, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the afternoon.